Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. Dan Lust, joined this week by, I don't think we've done this before, Mike K, Mike Krivchenko, and Mike Lawson. We got Mike and Mike in the house.
We've definitely done Mike and Mike before.
We've definitely been together. I don't know if it was us two and Dan or us two and Taryn, but yeah, the Mike and Mike were in it. And K and L. I mean, very close in the alphabet. I mean, come on.
You guys have been on a podcast together, but I don't think it has been the three of us. I don't think it's been the three of us. And I will say that you two have not been on a podcast together in 365 days or more because Mike abandoned us and now he's back, right? It's fair?
That's fair. The 2025 was a very busy year for the Lawson household.
Are you joining us as you've been on the podcast somewhat recently, but you're now married. Mike K got engaged. So guys have big things happening.
That's right. Life is happening.
Mike K, are you going to abandon us after your wedding?
No, absolutely not. I told you, I'm here.
Listen, in the ranking of Mike and Mike, we have a competition now. Mike L is back. So Mike K, watch out. Okay.
All right. I got to level up.
Okay. Okay. So we have, a good agenda today. We have some big stories. We're recording this on Friday, January 9th. So we do not know the result of the college football semifinals, but we have some big college stories. Mike, I'm going to go. I'm going to say the name. You're going to tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong after. But we're going to give you the roadmap for today. We're going to roll through it. Demond Williams.
So funny you say that, right? I listened to it, and his coach did just say Demond. So
I've heard Demond.
Yeah,
it's either Demond or I would find it weird. Well, I don't want to say this if it's true, but a parent naming their child Demon Williams or something resembling. Yeah. Okay. Demond Williams is the rave. He's a big quarterback out of Washington University. It's the biggest story in the college sports world. There were rumors, and again, we're recording this on Friday, so a lot of things have changed. We almost recorded yesterday, but there were rumors that he was going to transfer from Washington to LSU. The only problem is, as those stories were leaking, Lane Kiffin was in an LSU basketball game with his current quarterback. We'll talk about it now as the kind of the dust has settled. Demon, whatever we're going to call him, Mr. Williams has now gone back to Washington. So we're going to talk about this interesting contractual clause that has gotten a lot of attention. Next, we'll talk about the curious eligibility case of Trinidad Chambliss, story involving a friend of the show, Tom Mars. So we'll talk about his appeal case. Definitely an interesting one. And then we're going to go over to baseball. We're going to talk about the trademark saga that is the Las Vegas Athletics. A lot of friends of the show being referenced. Josh Gerben had one of his fun tweets that he goes like, hey, this is what's happening with the athletic trademark. And then that story blew the F up. It blew up a lot. So good for Josh. And another world, we probably could have had Josh on the show today. We're trying to get our ducks in a row. And then we have an update. We'll see if there's more updates as this comes. But we talked briefly about Anthony Joshua last week. We've learned more about the crash. That's obviously international global phenom, the recent KO artist of Jake Paul. We have updates on that crash, and we were kind of hypothesizing about what would happen. And now we have some criminal charges in that case that have been filed. Speaking of criminal charges, we're going to talk about Stephon Diggs and maybe some criminal charges that should follow concerning the attacks on Tyler Loop, Ravens kicker. That being said, our show is sponsored by Themis Bar Review, top bar prep company ever in the galaxy. We love Themis.
Themis responds. They respond. You DM Themis, they respond.
Yeah, because they're all our friends. So, okay, it's all good. Let us get into the thick of it. So, Mike K, can you lay us out? I gave us the kind of the high level. Can you lay us out kind of the background of Demond Williams, who he is, kind of his caliber as a quarterback? I think the story got a lot of attention because it was LSU was being involved, but give us as much as you can. And then Mike L, I think we should spend some time talking about the clauses that are at play here.
Yeah, I'll give the background and the timeline, because the timeline was a little shifty over the last number of weeks. And it's pretty significant money, a significant quarterback at a very significant school. So he had allegedly or a reported $4 million NIL revenue sharing agreement with Washington to stay for the 2026 upcoming season. But I mean, almost immediately afterwards, he announced on social media, his own platform, his intention to enter the actual transfer portal, and everything started to explode from there. Immediately signing a NIL agreement and then right afterwards announcing that you're going to enter the transfer portal, brought a lot of questions into really how contracts are enforced and any actual, like, what are the legal considerations when it comes to NIL contracts compared to how they sit as students, as athletes. There's a lot of really confusion, I think, going on right now at the university level, at the NCAA level. So, yeah, Washington actually never submitted his name to the portal, which effectively blocked the technical transfer entry under the NCAA procedures. Huge question mark there. And his agent at Wasserman immediately terminated the representation. And there was a disagreement over philosophical issues and over the actual transfer strategy. So his new legal counsel was retained by Williams Jr. And yeah, amid all of the pressure and scrutiny, as of yesterday, Williams reversed the course and announced that he will actually be remaining at Washington for 2026. Can we say friend of the show? Give the name out there, Darren Heitner.
Yeah, Darren Heitner, definitely friend of the show. He's been on the show with us a bunch. Darren almost came on today, and I think that, obviously this thing, I thought we were gonna have a long drawn out situation, and then like turned around and got settled up in like 24 hours. So yeah, less to talk about. We know what was going to happen. I like when people hypothesize about what will happen. But yes, that's is what it is.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I mean, really the contract enforcement, the nature of it. We were talking a little bit offline of just how kind of interesting it is, of what the actual implications would be for either Williams, the school that he was possibly going to, what Washington can actually seek for any of their damages there. So, I mean, is an NIL contract actually enforceable if a player attempts to leave? I'm curious there and how they would actually approach that, and if that would even impact the next school that Williams would have gone to.
Well, we're living in a post-house settlement world now. So for years, we've talked about Alston. For years, we talked about House. For a very long time, we talked about the House settlement. And a portion of that House settlement is the revenue sharing model. And you just mentioned that the NIL deal that Williams has is a revenue sharing portion, $4 million. So that's the value of his contract. And it's under a revenue sharing cap that the House settlement had agreed to. So the penalty, if you will, that if Williams is to transfer, it's basically that his contract didn't allow him to transfer, and if he was to transfer, then he owes the value of his contract and the amount of $4 million back to the University of Washington. So the penalty for a future school is, I guess, just a direct correlation of the revenue sharing cap. Whatever school he ends up going to, then whatever money that they're trying to apportion to him, they can take a financial hit only in the realm of whatever their revenue sharing model already is, if they are close to the cap or if they go over the cap. So if there's now we're like talking about like salary caps in a sense of professional models, or baseball luxury tax. But so that would be the penalty that we're talking about. So Williams leaves. That breaches his contract, that breaches the NIL contract that he has, and the penalties for that breach, or him and probably the future school, if they wanted to pay his way out, right? If they're paying $4 million to have Williams come to that school, whether it's LSU or whoever it may have been, now you're talking about how much money that they've paid for a revenue sharing percentage value of this contract. And if they have to take a hit now on the back end because they've gone over, if they already allocated all of their revenue sharing model, which I'm sure LSU is probably at the top of their cap. I don't know the specifics of theirs, but it definitely impacts whatever the next school he would go to, unless Williams just pays it all himself.
So I'll add this part, which I think is, we've talked about this in the show before, right? Like, where's the money coming from? So in that sense, like, a couple different factors at play. So Mike, you alluded to it, and I think we were having a conversation offline. I think it was worded in a confusing way that people couldn't quite figure out, like, if Williams goes to LSU, who's paying the money? Like, is he, I think the way that some of these people ran with it, that LSU had a contractual obligation somehow as like the new school to pay the old school. So, Mike L., you nailed it offline. Like, what contractual right does LSU or any other third party school have to pay a debt to a party where they're not a party to that contract? So the way these things are written is like the player will have to pay that amount back. And to the extent the school really wants to get a particular player and the player has the correct representation, they'll say, hey, I have this penalty to get out of my contract. And in order for me to agree to leave school A, you have to cover that debt. So then I'm free to go to school B. And that buyout is not my concern. So interestingly, right, when there were some reports about Williams here getting, I think the reports were like he was going to get somewhere in the territory of $5 to $6 million to go to LSU. Remember on the back end, right? That again, these are all reports, but assuming the reports are accurate and assuming the buyout report is accurate and he was intending to pay the buyout and not breach it, what's $6 million plus $4 million? It's a lot of money to get a quarterback. So, yeah, I don't, obviously he ends up going back to the school. I don't know if he went back to the school, A, because he really made that decision, or potentially the school, be it LSU or the third party school, basically didn't want to pay $10 million as opposed to $6 million, which is a lot different. But yeah, it was reported in a way that I think was, not intentionally, but it definitely caused some confusion amongst the general population.
But it's a good starter conversation for a post-house settlement world of revenue sharing NIL deals. The more that we see come to the surface and the more that people enter the transfer portal, the more that we're going to have these types of situations.
Can I say one thing that's interesting? And it came up in a contract that I did recently. So people, and I had a parent that I'm working with who had the same kind of question. Like, essentially, somebody signed for a certain amount of money, and they signed to at the beginning of the portal, and they signed, and whatever this parent was, found out a couple days later while the portal was still open that another school would have offered more money. So they told me, and they said, we're screwed, right? We're done. And I said, well, you're done if you want to be done, but there are termination for convenience that you mutually drafted that either side for any reason can terminate. So like, I don't like that language. It shouldn't be in there, but there's longer conversation. The school needed in there. We wanted it both ways. And the question is like, and maybe people just need to understand this, like that was the drama. Like Williams was announced to have re-signed at Washington. Everyone's like, okay, he must be good because he signed on January 2nd, 2026. Okay, well, if he has language that can get him out of that contract, it's very different than an NFL contract or an NBA contract where there's collective bargaining. All these teams agree not to tamper with one another. It is, again, we'll say it to a blue in the face, it's still the wild, wild west. So unless and until you penalize the guy to death for leaving the school, and you have the, I almost said a bad word, you have the willingness to sue a player, as we've seen happen now in recent weeks. These contracts are only worth, they're worth the paper that they're drafted on. So a guy can sign for $4 million and then turn around the next day and get an offer for more, right? Like, if he has the right language to get him out and someone's going to pay the buyout clause, there is no, put it this way, you cannot rest easy as a fan of any college sport team in this current climate. Okay, so before we get off this topic, Mike, you alluded to it at the intro about him, about Williams firing, or we'll say his representation parting ways at Wasserman. Philosophical differences, I think, was the kind of like public messaging, but I think it's interesting. I think it's just kind of like a topic that all lawyers and law students should understand. So there's a deal that's signed, and we can talk about the Wild Wild West and this, but there are like ramifications. So someone like Williams, right? He's only going to go through this process once. He can burn a bridge at Washington, and he doesn't have to worry about it again because he's never going back there, right? That's what I'm sure his thought process was at some point in time. But who procured that $4 million deal for him? It wasn't like nobody. It was an agent. And if a player decides, hey, I'm going to blow this up, this deal that you've just negotiated for however long, and this and this and this, and he gets out of the deal, which at some point in time we thought he was going to do, that makes the agent look terrible. It makes the agent look terrible to Washington unless the agent is part of that strategy. So, and this agent is going to be dealing with Washington. They're going to be dealing with other schools, and you're only worth as much as your word is, right? So the point we just said, like, how much is a contract worth? It's worth as much as an agent's going to have that player bound to it. So again, we don't know the facts, and I'm certain we never will. But I find it interesting that Wasserman, who's incredible and a very big agency in space, we have some friends there, makes that decision because Williams is leaving the school. Okay, so if you're trying to figure out what most likely is happening, they're saying, hey, you're burning the bridge. You're going to make us look bad at Washington. We're going to save face and we're going to cut you because we have hundreds of millions of contracts to negotiate, not just 4. But Mike, what do you think Wasserman's thinking when all of a sudden Williams goes back to Washington? Do you think Wasserman's back in the picture, or do you think they're just saying, you know what, we don't trust the guy?
Or is this an even deeper strategy that Williams just wanted Wasserman out and they didn't want to fire him? And they made Wasserman walk away. Now, I think it's funny. I mean, we're in the like infantile stages of agents truly involved in collegiate athletics, besides like your typical like recruiting and all of that's happened in years past. But for like the drafts, but this is the starting point of what we're going to find out is like there's going to be agents who are going to be those types of bulldogs. You're going to have an agent that rises to the surface that's going to be a Scott Boras that doesn't care what people think about him because they know the value of the athletes that they are representing. So I understand Wasserman trying to maybe save face because they have to have more athletes that come down the tube that they have to negotiate with Washington. But at the same time, I think that there could be something deeper rooted there that Wasserman just truly didn't agree with what Williams was trying to do or what Williams' value was. Williams might have thought that he was worth a lot more than Wasserman was able to actually get for him. So Williams wasn't happy with Wasserman's evaluation of him. So there's always a breakdown of something behind the scenes, but whether it's related to Wasserman trying to save face, I don't think so. I don't think that that's probably what they truly care about because in the end, Washington wants these athletes, so they're going to want to negotiate, and then it's just brass tacks at that point. So I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think there's also, and like Dan was saying, this is all reporting. One thing that I think is almost for sure is Wasserman also represents the Washington head coach, Jed Fish. So it's like almost a conflict of interest there. I don't know, like when the goals of one of your clients are completely different than one of your other clients, it's kind of interesting. Like it puts Wasserman in a difficult position, I think, which could have possibly played into why they wanted to maybe remove themselves from Demond Williams, is because they're also representing a head coach there. They weren't really trying to facilitate his transfer of the school, and how much of that plays into it as well. It's I don't know. It wasn't allegedly, like I said, this is all alleged. The reporting and sources are saying that the transfer was not coordinated with Wasserman at all. Like he just basically made the decision on his own without any agent involvement. So that I think could be a big portion of it. And then as well as, like it's somewhat of a conflict of interest when one of your clients is kind of screwing over another one of your clients for, maybe it's not coming out of Jed Fish's paycheck and he's not signing the specific NIL agreement as the school is, but it is still somewhat of a conflict of interest that your coach is kind of losing a $4 million player that he just invested in while you're, and that's one of your clients. So I think that's another portion of it here, at least on the Wasserman and Washington side of things.
I think that goes to like what Dan said right at the top too. Like this is like from the boilerplate, like as an attorney representing clients, you're going to have a client who just completely ignores your advice and goes off the rails and does something that like, so Wasserman also could have very strictly instructed him to not transfer. And he's like, I don't care. And he does it. Right. So that happens too, where like you'll have a client who just completely is ignoring you in all of your, requests of them or direction for them. It's like, that's what you're paying your attorney for. That's what you're paying your agent for. They're the ones that are giving you the advice. If you want to do it yourself, fine, but I'm not going to be involved. So I get that too. I've had clients like that in my career where it's like, a client's just lying to or doing the opposite of what you're advising them on. And that just makes it more difficult for you to do your job. So I get that portion of it.
So let's say this, and then we'll move on to Chambliss. There's also language, and Wasserman's obviously a very high-level agency. I'm curious to see what's in their contract, but sometimes you're entitled to the commission only when you helped procure the deal. So to the point that we're saying, like let's say the reports are true that Williams had screw it. I'm going to get my own deal at LSU. Maybe Wasserman was trying to save face and to say, hey, we're basically going to get fired anyway. This guy's doing his own thing. Let's just kind of save face here. So possible. Okay. So let's go over to Chambliss. Let's as we're recording this, again, we don't know who's in the national finals. I will say I lost a good amount of money betting against Chambliss in the previous round. I wanted to bet on him this round and then did not go as well. So I'm 0 for 2 betting for or against Chambliss, which is great. It's fantastic. Okay, so Trinidad Chambliss kind of comes out of nowhere, wins a national championship at Ferris State. He had played at Ferris State, or was on the roster, we'll say, for since 2021. And after winning the national title at Ferris State, makes a transfer to Ole Miss. So I think this is important. And then Mike, I'll hand it to one of the Mikes. I only just have to say Mike. Mike, I'll give it to you. Figure who it is. Okay, so 2021 he redshirts. Okay, 2022, it's his freshman year. 2022, he basically gets a DNP as a ongoing respiratory issue. So he doesn't accrue any stats in what would be his second year. 2023, he starts one game. He goes 0-1 in that game. He doesn't really play. He's clearly the backup, get some time. Okay. Then, right, doesn't really give you the profile of someone that's going to at some point go to Ole Miss. Then in 2024, his fourth year in college, but really only his second year accruing statistics, he goes 14-1, 26 touchdowns, 6 picks, that's throwing, runs for another 25. He's got 51 all-purpose touchdowns. Okay, this is an athlete, all the things that we've seen with Chambliss. Ferris State wins the Division II title. And then he goes to Ole Miss and he just has this 11-1 season. If you're looking at the back of the baseball card stats, he's got 3 years where he accrued statistics, 1 year with a health issue, and 1 year as a redshirt. So in theory, I'm okay, and I'm sure most people are okay with this guy getting a fourth or an extra year because he's only really played for 3 years. So that said, I think this is a Mike K issue. Mike K, why is his appeal, or why is his waiver getting denied? Why does he have to appeal when he used friend of the show Tom Mars, who I'm sure did an excellent job? What is the argument that he hasn't satisfied?
Well, the NCAA had found insufficient medical evidence that Chambliss was actually medically incapacitated during that first season, like you had mentioned, or during that missed season at Ferris State in 2022. And they're saying that they found a physician note from that December of 2022 that stated that he was doing very well at the time, which kind of undermines like the waiver basis and like that he was actually injured. I know you mentioned the respiratory issue, but apparently Ferris State reported it had no medical treatment documentation indicating that he was out due to the injury or illness for any relevant period that we were just talking about. So, I mean, apparently that's not that the NCAA's findings are saying that the normal, like you mentioned, the injuries and illnesses that would normally allow you to continue to, get approved through that waiver for a sixth season, saying that there's no evidence that that's why he was out. I'm not sure why exactly or what their reasoning is beyond that, but that's maybe all they need here is that there's just no medical evidence to prove that he was out because of a medical issue. I imagine Ole Miss is going to pursue an appeal. I know they are. Yeah. Within the process and trying to submit more explanation and documentation. It's going to be, I would imagine, difficult to go back to 2022 if there's no living document of the medical documentation. You can't get like reevaluated for an injury or illness 4 years later. So, they might have to file suit in Mississippi. I don't. Maybe personally, I think that he would actually, in a very, in my opinion, weak quarterback class, be a decent draft pick. He's proven himself twice.
I'll say something quick, and then Mike K will give it to you. So from the ESPN's reporting, it said that so Mike, you say I think you said insufficient. So according to Chambliss's camp, they submitted 91 pages of medical records and a note from his treating physician that he had this issue with his respiratory issues. It was related to a tonsil issue, and the tonsils were removed later. So where I think the issue lies is that this is coming up now, right? And Ferris State's got to be on the same page. So I don't think Chambliss had any had any aspirations in 2022 of going pro and needing this extra year. So, you know, you can't really like force hindsight's 2020, but had there been put it this way, in 2022, had he gone to the school and said this, right? Like you just have respiratory issues and have some issue, but it's not necessarily related to your playing career. So, you know, it's kind of, I'm sure it's a hassle. And he had at that point 3 other years to play, right? Because he had just redshirted. So I'm sure he didn't think it was a concern. So the issue is probably contemporaneous recording of this issue. So like, yeah, like we're in January of 2026. So like we're now having this issue of how legit this thing was from December of 2022. It's not quote unquote a statute of limitations issue, but like that's the reason statute of limitations exists for this type of purpose. You can't wait this long to bring a claim where now we have to test the veracity of whether it's true or not.
Yeah, and apparently in those 91 documents, it doesn't say that there was any, like you mentioned, that it was affecting his play on field or that he wasn't able to play because of that. And that he was seen from August, you know, in 2022 to December of 2022, and that he had actually been improving and doing very well. So, yeah, you mentioned, you know, hindsight is 2020, but you don't think in 4 years you're going to need to bring this to the NCAA, but yeah, I mean, you had to. Like, I don't know that it goes beyond that at this point.
I'm more concerned that Fair State has no documentation themselves, right? Because if you're Fair State and you have a player who just came off a red shirt and you yourself might want to keep him in your camp, then you're going to do your best to advocate for your athlete to have a medical red shirt. You can do that too, you know, especially if he truly had some sort of medical issue that was keeping him out. I've seen that when I was in compliance at Syracuse. I understand. I mean, that's what the medical red shirt is for, and it's to allow these athletes to maximize the years of eligibility that they can have. And NCAA eligibility rules have always been pretty strict. And then COVID hit, and then NIL hit, and everything went really haywire. But I think I'm less concerned. Like, obviously, Tom Morris is a great attorney. He's gonna file this appeal. Like we know he will. But I'm more concerned about Fair State just being like, we have nothing, and Fair State doesn't owe him anything now. So why are they going to go to bat necessarily for him to get an extra year of eligibility just for him to make more money for Ole Miss, not them? So
yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, they specifically cited too, like, developmental needs and our team's competitive circumstances as the reason why he didn't play in that 22-23 season. They did not.
And then he started what'd you say, Dan? He started one game in the next season?
Yeah, I can't tell. That profile makes it seem like he's a backup or he's a third string, because he started one game and it says he appeared for 8. So it might just got like mop up time, bullshit time. But, you know, like, obviously we can go back and forth in this. We'll look up at the appeal. Tom, I messaged with Tom yesterday. You know, I think this, and you could just read the writing on the wall. Like, this was a big player, big case, high profile. And this is, I think he did Justin Fields back in the day. That was like his main one, like Tom back in the day when he came kind of on our radar. But, you know, like in the grand scheme of things, we'd be, you know, try to be consistent. I don't think it's good that a guy like Diego Pavia gets these extra JUCO years. They're very different cases. So we can pull up, and Mike, maybe while I'm talking, you could pull up the Diego Pavia statistics. Like, Trinidad Chambliss only had 2 full years. We're going to call it JUCO, college, Division I, Division II, whatever. He had 2 years where he was the starter. He started 17 games. Okay, so I'm okay with Trinidad Chambliss getting another year of eligibility. I don't really doesn't impact me. Now, Diego Pavia, Mike. Now that I've given you a second, how many years was he like? Does it look like he started sufficient games?
I mean, he played a full season at New Mexico Military in 2021. He played 13 games, but the season before that he played, which was 2020, it was the COVID year, so it was 8 games. There wasn't like it was a shortened season. So he played the shortened season, then he played a full season the year after. Then he started 8 games in 2022 at New Mexico State. Played a full season as the starter at New Mexico State the following year, and now 2 years at Vanderbilt. So yeah, I mean, there's the 6 years.
But Dan, that's a slippery slope for you to make an argument just because he wasn't starting or putting up like sufficient statistics to make an argument that you get an extra year of eligibility. You could be some bum 3 years on a team and then keep applying for extra years of eligibility because you were the backup or the sixth man off of the bench for basketball.
We've given waivers for much less. Trinidad Chambliss is now in the like. I just think the NCAA. Listen, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but we have two different players. We have a player that has started who Diego Pavia is going to end up being a starter for 6 years in college football. JUCO, I don't really make that distinction. I know the courts do. And we have Trinidad Chambliss, who played for 2. One, Diego Pavia got his 6th year of eligibility, and Trinidad Chambliss can't have his 3rd year as a starter. Now, Mike, I agree with you. Starting on the bench, this. But we have Trinidad Chambliss, who, like, I don't know, he's saying he has a respiratory issue, has 91 pages of medical records. Like, don't you think it's in the NCAA's interest to allow him to play another year? So again, I've said in Pavia, I don't think there should be an unlimited cap for these players. I don't think at some point we have to have limits. So this is me as the guy that doesn't normally say this. I think it's probably a good thing to be firm and tight to rules. And shockingly, there is insufficient evidence like that. That's backwards of what the NCAA should do. But if we're being consistent, and I'm saying we as me, there have to be limits and we have to say no to somebody. I'm surprised that no was Trinidad Chambliss, but at some point there have to be guardrails. So I guess I'm okay with some waivers being denied at some point in time.
Yeah, and it's the thing with Pavia too is like there is that nuance of the COVID year, like it was like half a season basically. So I don't know. We all feel about the Pavia situation, but it is definitely different in the sense of if there are no medical documentation, or at least the medical documentation doesn't explicitly say that this was the reason why he wasn't playing, and the team that he was on is saying that the reason was because of developmental things, I mean, that's a hard argument to win against.
It's interesting. The NCAA should be in the business of allowing Trinidad Chambliss to play another year. He's the biggest success story in college football this year. Off the scrap heap, and again, I don't want to say anything that Division II guy to college football playoff, like it's unheard of. So we have to, again, if we're in favor of guardrails and there being some rules around college football, like got to give the NCAA some props at some time for having a backbone. Not that I agree with them, but this is what it is. Okay. That said, we'll see tonight who wins between Oregon and Indiana. I saw a really cool stat that Indiana has by far less 5 stars and 4 stars than the other teams in the college football playoff. And everyone's like, well, they must have a shittier team. Like, how are they possibly doing this? And then like the other metric that people looked at is like average age of player. And Indiana's average age is 23. And I think the Green Bay Packers average age on their roster is like 25. So basically, like Indiana is full of, 5th and 6th year guys like Diego Pavia guys that have found their way into the waiver system. And these other schools have younger, more talented guys that'll probably be 1st-round picks. But it's a question of experience versus talent. And Indiana is the best team in the country right now. So we'll see that play out tonight. And, if Indiana's in the championship game, we'll see it play out on a bigger scheme in about 10 days from now.
Just one note on just to wrap up my thought on the on basically, because you talked about statute of limitations, Dan, that got my brain thinking. I was like, I don't think that there's like a limit on when you're allowed to like move for like a medical hardship. I mean, typically you're supposed to, you have to, I know what you have to prove. I mean, you have to prove that the injury occurred in the first half of the season, that you can't play 30%. You had to compete in less than 30% of competitions. Like I wonder if it's a different process that like Tom Mars and camp has to do to basically prove the medical hardship and then the waiver of eligibility, right? Or is it all at once, right? Like it's almost like they put the cart before the horse. Like there was no medical hardship that he received at Ferris, and like that's what Ferris is saying. It's like we don't have any medical proof. Like he didn't play, yeah, and he's saying he was medically limited, but we don't have like a medical hardship, right? So now they've moved for an extra year of eligibility on the argument that he had a medical hardship, but he doesn't have the medical hardship waiver. So it's almost like now on this appeal is they have to prove the medical hardship waiver, and then they have to get the extra year of eligibility, which I think could be successful. I mean, that's the only way I think that they can do it.
Yeah, the point is, and maybe statute of limitations is probably not the right term. It probably is more like latches. Like why it makes sense. This doctrine of latches, like you can't wait for indefinitely to make an argument about something. Like if you have an ability to make it, you should have done it then. So it's obviously you're not. The word latches, I can guarantee you, is not coming up at this hardship hearing or this sort of thing. It's not. But the concept is like if there's no record of it, Fair State is not in the interest of lying. Like Fair State loves how many times they're getting mentioned in the press. Like they would be honest about it, but if they say they don't have a record, they don't have a record. So clearly, someone, maybe Chambliss was unhappy and he was thinking about quitting football. And he just said, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, and that's the nature of the beast. So it is what it is. Okay, Mike K. As we started kind of prepping for this topic, we learned that there may be some misconceptions in the press about what is actually on the USPTO's website. So, okay, we have the Las Vegas Athletics. It's a fun story. People in Oakland are really pissed at the Athletics. I'm sure they'll do fine in Las Vegas when they get there. But obviously they left in a pool of a plume of smoke. Is that what it's called? Plume of smoke?
I think that's correct.
Plume of smoke. Yeah, that's one of those words that you only say out loud. I have no idea how that's spelled. But yeah, so they're in Sacramento for the next 3 years, then going to Vegas. So we have some news on the trademark front. So Mike K, break it down, and we can try to separate fact from fiction from what we see on the filing websites.
Yeah, it's another story of a professional franchise that has been around for a while, struggling to move locations, going from Oakland to Las Vegas. The Commanders were struggling with figuring out their name, and then having issues with trademarks. We were talking about the Mammoth earlier this year. This is happening across all of professional sports right now, and it's really interesting that it even can, But the USPTO had very recently this week issued a non-final refusal of the Athletics trademark applications for Las Vegas Athletics and for Vegas Athletics. And the basis of their refusal, which for me personally, I think it's pretty valid. It's geographically descriptive. Las Vegas is obviously a very well-known place, and the mark is very generic and weak with the term athletics. So, it's very broad. It could be describing sports, exercise, an athletic activity. High schools and local teams could be using it. It doesn't really uniquely identify any single source of it. And Mike, we were talking about it offline ahead of time. They had it in Oakland, they were in Philadelphia, they were in Kansas City, all as the Athletics, and there weren't any issues. But here there's an issue. It doesn't really distinctly, Las Vegas is a significant place. It's a very well-known place, and athletics, I don't know, it's a little difficult there. It's too generic or not very descriptive, was the USPTO's reasoning, at least. And I think one of the quote-unquote fun parts of this also is that there's been so much drama with the A's moving from Oakland to Las Vegas, same with the Raiders previously. So I do want to bring into this episode the fan group known as the Last Dive Bar, being part of one of the biggest Oakland A's supporter collective, basically nicknamed after a local bar and fan hangout over there. They filed their own trademark for the Las Vegas Athletics back in 2024. There were reports that it was before the A's did. We're trying to, according to the website, it was not. So that they were in March of 2024, and then about 4 or 5 months earlier, the Athletics, when they initially in November were, I guess, initiating their move, they had filed for the Athletics trademark. In the trademark law, at least, first to use in commerce, and if someone can show legitimate commercial use of the term before the team does, they may have some rights to it. But according to the USPTO website, that was abandoned in 2025 for a lack of response on the Last Dive Bar or the dive bar's, I guess, lack of response or delayed response. So according to that, it was completely denied as well. So as of right now, no one has the Las Vegas Athletics trademark. And it's, the season's right around the corner. Again, this is we're getting right to the, Mike mentioned, we might see the Las Vegas baseball team. There is no trademark in place. They haven't actually, I would imagine they've already started all the merchandising and trying to set up and going through uniforms, fan gear, everything. But they've been denied, so they're obviously going to appeal that and go try to refile within 6 months. But at least that's what they have to do, file a response or an extension request within 6 months of the refusal, which was this past week. So it was considered abandoned by the dive bar. I would imagine that's their purpose, but the Athletics baseball team is obviously going to fight for that. And once they actually start using Las Vegas Athletics and goods and services more in the market, does, I think, become much easier to establish some sort of secondary meaning and distinctiveness. And once they have their fan base in Las Vegas, I think that helps. But I mean, the combination of very generic, name with the generic sporting term, athletics, that kind of covers all sports. So it's interesting. I'm curious how you can go from Philadelphia to Kansas City to Oakland and have all of these names, and then you go to Las Vegas and now you're being denied. So I think the biggest obstacle is that genericness, but they are a professional baseball team. They're a very well-known professional baseball team. People know the Athletics forever. They're one of the original teams in the league. So I think that there is a good course for them ahead, but it's just, how many times is this going to happen in professional sports where the team is going to move and throughout that process, they're getting denied certain terms or people are filing ahead of them? I do want to clarify, according to the website, that the dive bar did not apply for the trademark before Las Vegas Athletics did, the team. But there's conflicting reports. I'm going to go by the USPTO website, but it's legally speaking, just really just nuts to me that there is no distinctive identifier right now for the Athletics. And Mike, I'm curious what your thoughts are on, the combination of all of this. What is, I guess, a realistic timeline, or what you see as the realistic outcome for something like this?
Well, I can tell you this: we're not dealing with a trademark squatter, so it's not like somebody beat him to the punch. The USPTO just determined that Athletics was too generic, so it's not a Martin McCauley, Washington Commanders situation. It's interesting to me because right now, as it stands, the Oakland Athletics are going to remain the Oakland Athletics while they are operating their stadium in Las Vegas. Because I don't know how you can. Maybe they still just operate as a Las Vegas Athletics without a trademark. That seems a little silly to me. Like you said, they're gonna file an appeal or request an extension by March, but they're moving into that stadium by 2028. So we still got 2 years before this all shakes out. Do we see a name change? Do we see an organizational shift and they have to or feel forced to completely remove themselves as the Oakland Athletics / Sacramento Athletics to now something completely different? Or do they just operate as the Las Vegas baseball team and move forward with trying to get a new name before they actually start playing in Vegas? I just think it's silly because, yes, I understand the rules of the USPTO, and I understand the trademark laws as it relates to generic names and stuff like that. But like you said, like secondary use in the market, like the Athletics in general has already been a trademark, and they went from the Philadelphia Athletics, like you said, to the Kansas City Athletics, to then the Oakland Athletics. So it's not like there's no history and no use of that name. There is typically what we see with like trademark issues is geographical issues. Like if they were to move into Las Vegas and there already was some like bar or club called like the Athletics, like Vegas Athletics or something like that, you would see a different story where like the Oakland Athletics would have to pay off. We saw that in Cleveland with the Guardians roller derby team, right? So like you have those types of conflicts, but this is one where it's like the USPTO is just not recognizing their name as being able to be trademarked. So as generic, I think they have to make a different argument on its face is that there's already a historical value in the market value of the name athletics. I understand that it means like it's generically everybody is an athlete that's out on the field, but I don't know. I think it's silly that they got denied in the first place, especially like you said, if the USPTO, it's like what we're seeing is that they filed first. So it's not, I mean, the last dive bar is claiming that they tried to beat him to the punch. But from what we're seeing on the USPTO is that they had filed all the way back in 2023 when they first were, right before they were unanimously voted in permitting the move. So I don't see it really being that big of news because I think the USPTO might change course, or the biggest shift would have to be the athletics have to change names.
Yeah, so I just I don't really have that much to add. The fact that they were the Oakland Athletics and that exists on the USPTO's website might just not. This might be something that like will be revisited once the Oakland A's actually move to Vegas. But right now they're in Sacramento for 3 years, so they're not really they're not the Las Vegas Athletics. That name doesn't exist. So maybe to your point, Mike, they'll revisit it once they renew the application, so to speak. Or, they'll just pay off the examiner because they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They would never do that, though. Okay.
So, well, actually, let me add one thing. What's interesting is that the application that the Athletics made was for the Las Vegas Athletics and the the Vegas Athletics. The actual so the Oakland Athletics on the USPTO is Oakland Athletics, and then they also are the A's. So it might just be like the Las Vegas A's, but that's also just as generic. But it's like A''S, like again, very generic, but it's like Las Vegas Athletic A's, like that's like something a little bit more specific. I don't know. Is a double generic make it more specific? I have no idea, but that is what their actual trademark is Oakland Athletics A's. So it's weird that they also didn't try to file Las Vegas Athletics A's. I don't know why, but
sure, that makes it so much less confusing, Mike. Okay. Yeah, I let's just say this. When we bring up a topic on the show, the point is don't always buy the news. Like, yes, the thing got denied, the application got denied. It doesn't mean they have to change their name, but and the dive bar stuff I thought was really fun. These people were saying that they have the trademark. It seemed really petty, but like USPTO's website says otherwise. Again, just call it like we see it. Okay. That being said, Mike L, do you want to close out our baseball news?
We'll stick with some baseball, with some breaking news as of today, Friday, January 9th. Max Kepler officially suspended 80 games for testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs. He tested positive for an anabolic steroid, epitrenbolone. So confirmed he did test positive. So he is a free agent. That's I think affects his career. He's 32 years old. He played like 75, maybe like 80% for the Phillies last year. Had a decent season. 32 free agent, 32-year-old free agent, missing half the season. Don't know if he's going to get picked up for next season. We'll have to see probably for 2027. Maybe he'll get signed by the Las Vegas baseball team.
Probably, but they won't go by that name. Oh, yeah. Las Vegas baseball team. Good one, Mike. Good one. Okay, let's do this quick. Let's just do. We talked about Anthony Joshua last week. The story was just kind of emerging. So, imagine everyone knows who Anthony Joshua is. We don't need to do the whole background. So, Anthony Joshua last week was involved in a really scary car crash where 2 people died. We were still trying to figure out kind of the details, and the driver was at fault. Mike, you and I were on the show, Mike K, and we were trying to say, there are issues with the vehicle maintenance. Could someone have tampered with the car? It happened in Nigeria. It was overseas. There's a lot of different things that were going through our heads. So as we record this 6 days later, some of those things have come true, and some of them are being offered as defenses. And we'll say true or not true. So Anthony Joshua's driver has been arrested and charged with a number of crimes, the primary of which being causing death by dangerous driving, and I think he was charged with the equivalent of reckless driving. So, in his defense, the driver in his statement seemed to be claiming that there was a mechanical issue, and then there are people in Joshua's circle. This is unconfirmed in this, but you see the reports that it really just was a driver error. So you kind of have it both ways. You see the charge. I think local authorities are probably under a lot of pressure to do something about the accident. And I would say probably two things. One of two things is true. You don't have an accident of that magnitude without either mechanical failure or pure driver error. Like, that's it. It's one of the two things. So driver error could be like distracted driving. You could be on your cell phone. You could be doing a lot of things. And if you cause the death of another person while you're on your cell phone, that certainly could result in a reckless driving charge, or obviously much worse than that, vehicular manslaughter, or something of that nature. So the question is always going to come down to proof, right? Like, what proof do they have? And I mean this in just again, the very serious way. Like, that was a terrible collision. Reportedly, the person in the front seat who was next to the driver has passed away. So that's the person that would be the closest witness to what was happening at that point in time. You can't necessarily charge the other occupants of the vehicle of knowing what the driver was doing, what was in their head. The question really comes down to whether there was mechanical failure in the vehicle. And if anybody has seen the pictures of that vehicle, I'm not sure you're getting much testing done in that vehicle. That thing is twisted metal in every degree. So yes. So I don't. At least the charge is not foul play. There's no investigation into someone sabotaging the car. This seems to be very much a traditional accident investigation. And thank God Anthony Joshua appears to be okay. We cannot say the same about all the other occupants of that vehicle, but we'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll certainly follow up. But just as a kind of life thing, and then we can move on to more football and fun stuff. Anthony Joshua was on the top of the world after knocking out Jake Paul, like the top of the world. He was trying to fight Tyson Fury, and then like within a matter of days, his world turns upside down, and his friends pass away in a car crash. It's absolutely terrible. But yeah, the Sports Little Show, we got to cover criminal charges for sure. So just kind of a PSA. Neither of you look like you want to say anything, so we will move on to the next topic now.
I just think the only thing I was going to add was, like you said, I mean, the only piece of it is that Anthony Joshua, there was like the reports that he had switched seats, like that he was like in the front seat and then switched to the back. So like something crazy there of like,
he was they were saying he was too big. The drivers, at least again, unconfirmed reports, but there's some messaging that Anthony Joshua was too big to be in that front seat. And logically, right? Like, you have a giant human in that front seat, put him in the back, you can't see the mirrors. But is what it is. Okay. Let's do this quick. We'll tie this into some football, and then we'll call it a day. So, two big kicks on Sunday night that we should talk about. So both occurred in the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. There was first the Chris Boswell missed kick, which I think Adam Schefter is trying to do some revisionist history about, whether the kick was blocked or not. But okay, Boswell misses the extra point. He's kind of in hot water, because if the Baltimore Ravens go down and they hit a kick, they're going to win the game. It's not going to be a tie. And Tyler Loop, who is a rookie sensation, replaced Justin Tucker, who we spoke about at the beginning of the season for his own issues, comes out and misses a kick. So, we put this out here, and one of my students did a really interesting presentation on it. There are, on any given day, like hundreds of people online that if like they said something like they said to Tyler Loop, and if you go to Tyler Loop's like Instagram account, there are like the meanest comments and all these sweet pictures of his wife and him. Like, people went all through his thread and are just blowing him up. So it doesn't have to be a long story, but I think, again, just maybe a general PSA, like, these kickers are, world-class people. No one kicks at 100% clip. Even Boswell was getting some death threats in that like little period of time where he missed the kick. And Schefter, I guess we could say revisionist history. Some rookie safety on the team, whoever this is, Keandre Jordan, block the kick. So like, what are we yelling at the kickers for if the kick is blocked? But then we have people online, and there are right now pending legislation around, I wouldn't say around the country, but in a handful of states to try to criminalize and create additional penalties for people that say these crazy things to people online. So imagine being Tyler Loop right now. Like you have like, I don't know, months to just live with this, and now your career is going to be marred by this play. So Mike L, Mike K, I don't know what you want to add to it, but I think it is it's pretty disgusting, the type of stuff that people say. Again, this is not a political show, but there are a lot of people that feel like they have ultimate license to say whatever they want about whatever political causes, and like some of those people lose their jobs for saying it. And I'm not saying right or left. I'm just saying that, like, for some reason, when it comes to sports, people just don't hold back, and they just blow these people up, and it is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely I think there's a greater sense of accountability amongst online people. I think it still happens. The death threats, it still happens. Kickers get the worst of it, right? Because it's like missing a free throw at the end of the game to lose the game, right? Like they place all of this pressure on these kickers to win these games, and like you said, like Loop is a rookie, like had a really good year. He kicks at 91% clip, and like just in general over the last, like, I would say maybe 10 years, kickers are missing at a higher clip in general. So like it is a already difficult position that there's all that much more pressure. Where like Luke kicked what it was a 70-yard field goal or 69-yard field goal or something earlier in the year. Like
I know it wasn't 69 because that guy in the Jaguars has the record at 68, but it could have been very long.
Yeah, like Luke, he's gonna be a good kicker. Like he's gonna have a good career. So it's
maybe not anymore. Maybe we've ruined him.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, if somebody does something actually personal to him, like that would be even worse. But like the death threats online is it's sickening that you have these athletes in general who get this type of hatred. And like you said, Boswell was getting all the hatred too, because if he had made that, then Boswell was the enemy number one for missing that extra point, which that's truly is supposed to be a chip shot. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, as much legislation as you can pass, there's only so much you can do on online garbage like this.
I don't know how many times we're going to go through it year after year, decade after decade. Like, and yeah, you prefaced it perfectly, Dan. We're seeing regular humans go out and kick field goals that are 30 yards. They just can't do it. The overwhelming majority of people just can't do it. And I just like to say that it, like, because they act like it's super easy. They act like being a kicker is super easy, while being they'll say being a quarterback or running back is super difficult. But then they're just like, oh, well, kickers and punters aren't football players, right? It's like, what do you mean? That's a whole part of the game. And it's extremely, accuracy kicking is probably got to be even harder than throwing a football accurately. So, it's very unfortunate. You hope it continues to die down generation after generation. But I think with the way social media exists and in the nature of people loving to build an army of hate, they'll be mad at something and then want to express their emotion online and get it out. They love the army behind it, that they can get other people to hate. Like there's a bunch of our whole fan base can go beat up on. They read the comments and they want to be a part of that. So I think this is, just another one that's going to go down in the history books. And then, hopefully it doesn't happen again, but it's just it's likely to happen again next season, the season after, and no matter what the game is.
Just go scream into your pillow.
If I were to say laces out, Dan, do either of you get that reference?
Yes, thank you. I'm not. I'm young, but
I have no idea.
We're sports fanatics. Come on.
The entire plot of the movie. There's a snapper, there's a holder, there's a kicker, there's the people that can block it. There's like any number of 5 factors that could mess up a kick. So everyone's got to chill out.
At least he didn't kick the ground.
Yeah, that was bad. But let's say Lamar had a better first half. Like maybe we should blame Lamar. Like why do we just care about that one piece? Interesting. Okay, so we'll say this quick. We made another prediction. I made. I'm gonna say I don't want to drag Mike K under the bus with me. I didn't think that Diggs would be playing. I don't know the precedent of if someone that's charged with a felony by a DA's office to play football games for an extended period of time. So, Mike, I know you told me this. I'll let you say it, but what we do have an update on Diggs. Why don't you tell everybody what the update is, and then we can talk about it quickly, and then we'll figure out how to get out of here.
Yeah, Patriots wide receiver. Patriots are extremely good. Very likely, at least on the AFC side, to at least make the AFC Championship game. And yeah, we mentioned that Stephon Diggs has been dealing with the felony case of stranglement and or strangling and sorry. So we were talking about last week, yeah, that the receiver basically is facing felony charges of strangulation and suffocation, basically allegedly after slapping or choking until she began to black out, that being his chef. So you mentioned he's facing felony charges, but still playing in the playoffs. And now they have they've even taken it to the point to postpone his arraignment for post playoffs. So once the Super Bowl is over, then this is where we are going to actually figure it out. It was originally January 23rd, which is I think 2 days or a day before the AFC Championship game. But of course, now they made the request to actually postpone that to February 13th, which is after the Super Bowl. Yeah, Dan, you can loop me in. I did not think that he would be playing or in any capacity, not getting any discipline from the NFL. It's very confusing to me. I mean, the only other person that I could think of, I think he briefly played was Aaron Hernandez, but it wasn't a full season. It wasn't like going into the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
and
I don't think they knew. I don't think we knew what was going on with Hernandez. I don't think did they let him play with a murder charge? No way.
He was on the roster, but I don't know if he played a few games. That's the only one I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
You could tell me. You can tell me I'm wrong. My gut is telling me that there was no way he played with a murder charge. Absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible.
I'll have to look it up. But
innocent until proven guilty. But
yeah, if I'm the only other one, maybe Pac-Man Jones was facing a felony charge. Yeah, there's a couple players that I know were, at least, about 10 years ago that were under contract and facing these felony charges, but continue to play either in practice but games are different, like you said. So yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so let's we'll figure out what comes of it. I'm surprised. I told my Patriots fans, "Woe was me. You guys are screwed." But or woe was them. What was them? Sure. Anyway, we'll leave Diggs for now. I think that's it. We covered a lot of ground. We usually do a what to watch for. I don't know if we have to do that today. I have one bet. I've been on a losing streak with bets on the podcast, and I wouldn't give them to you unless I felt good about this one. This is an odd one. Okay, Mike, you ready for this? Are you ready? Okay.
Never am.
So I subscribe to the theory, and generally I'm a winning bettor. My tax record will reflect that I'm a winning bettor. I subscribe to the theory of rat lines that don't make any sense. And if they don't make any sense, like, sure, you could bet the side that like why is a team only, like, for example, like after on New Year's, Mike K, we didn't talk about this, but like Miami scored a touchdown on Ohio State, and all of a sudden Ohio State was a 1.5 point dog to Miami, which didn't make any sense. So like, you should probably take Miami, but I took Ohio State because sometimes you're not supposed to celebrate New Year's and place bets. That's probably a good lesson. But here we have a rat line, and we're going to go the other way. We're going to do what we're supposed to do when you see a rat line, a betting line that doesn't make sense. Okay. Josh Allen of my Buffalo Bills. Okay. The last 2 weeks, these are his rushing totals. Okay. 27 yards and 17 yards. So he has a combined 44 yards in the last 2 weeks. That's not that many yards, right?
He's hurt, but continue.
Listen to me. Josh Allen's not hurt. He's playing this weekend. Josh Allen's a warrior. He's the best quarterback in football. Now, in the 2 weeks before that, 48 yards and 78 yards. The Bills didn't need to win these last 2 weeks, so he wasn't really rushing. But the algorithm seems to indicate, like what you said, Mike, he's hurt. He's not going to run that much. Josh Allen has a path to win the Super Bowl this year. He is going to be running like an absolute maniac. Okay? So I look at the lines for this is on FanDuel on DraftKings under playoff milestones. You go to rush yards. It says in the playoffs, will Josh Allen have over 100 yards? So not the last 2 weeks, but weeks 3 and 4, he had over 100 yards. That was 2 games. He had 130 yards. Okay, over 100 yards is plus 175. I love that because I think he's going to do that in 2 games, and I think the Bills are going to play in 2 games. If you want to be a complete maniac, 150 plus yards is 5-1. So if you think the Bills are going to win a couple games and going to run, you can make 5-1 on your money. I don't really subscribe to that one. I think the Bills play 2 games, and I love the Bills. I think the Bills beat the Jags. They play one other game. We'll see who they end up playing. But at plus 100 yards at plus 175, I think is a pretty good bet. And I think Josh Allen is going to be running around like a maniac. As long as you think they can beat the Jags this weekend, you get your second game, and I think that bet hits. So the bet I'm giving you is Josh Allen plus 175 to have 100 yards over the course of the playoffs. Mike, you have to hold me to this. Remember, if I get it wrong, you have to hold my feet to the fire. Just tell me I was wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong on this. I think Josh is going to be a maniac, absolute maniac.
You'll be getting texts. It'll be on the podcast. We might even put out a Twitter or LinkedIn post about it.
Don't just let me put bets out and they fail, and I'm not harassed for it. This is what I give the people. That's my opinion, and I will love to see Josh running like a lunatic. But he understands there's no Mahomes. You got Drake May, who's a fake MVP candidate. You have a really weak AFC. This is Josh Allen's for the taking. I think, and this is not the bet, but I think the Bills could very easily be in the Super Bowl, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why they're not the prohibitive favorite, but here's what it is. You guys don't agree.
I will strongly disagree just because of the team itself is extremely riddled with injuries, on both sides of the ball. So it's a weak AFC, but I think your Bills hat's coming in just a little bit on the Super Bowl prediction.
But I don't hate the bet of the week is the rushing yards.
That's fair.
Mike, L, anything to add before we close this out?
Just a quick one on what to watch for. There's going to be an argument January 13th. This is a transgender athlete case. 2 laws are going to be argued in front of the Supreme Court, one out of Idaho and one out of West Virginia. Both laws similar, where it is Idaho's law is called the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and I think West Virginia's the Save Women's Sports Act. It's preventing transgender women from participating in women's youth sports. So this is an attack on that on the constitutionality of both of those laws. So just something to watch for on the future of more youth in high school sports as it relates to transgender athletes.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. Gentlemen, that'll do it for us here. It is Friday night here, and apparently the delivery has arrived with the food, and the kids are screaming. So that means the ticking time bomb has exploded. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for listening to Conduct Detrimental. With that said, we will see you next week on another lovely episode of the Sports Law Podcast, Conduct Detrimental.